We are going to talk Trump first 90 days, first year, and maybe if we have time and interest, we'll talk about Trump first or last 4 years of office, right? Second time elected, only can go twice. So we'll talk about that. We're going to do this as the Three Amigos. At the time of recording, the Trump inauguration, I think, is 4 or 5 days away. So I think it's relevant. What might we expect in the first 90 days? I think that is probably most relevant. And then maybe what we will expect to occur in the first year. Folks, we do have a new president coming in. Matt, you were the first to join. When you think Trump first 90 days, what do you think is coming and what will be the impact of said things?
I think it will be in this order. 400 executive orders overturned. The ones that have all been jammed down our throats the last 90 days with no say and no Congress and no approvals. I think all of those disappear. Thankfully, I think that the next 90 days is going to be less eventful than people think, because I think he has a lot of chaos that he has to jump into and take care of. Okay. I think we've seen, whether it's California fires, still the storm that affected the South, that's not been handled well at all. And shockingly, the press isn't watching it and handling it and talking about it. I know a lot of people down there. I know that there are makeshift roads. Everything is makeshift. Everything is good for them. Southern ingenuity and just saying, we got to live and we got to move on, whether the government's coming or not. And they're just doing the right thing by themselves.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up. I'm watching that area.
Yeah.
Because there's some people in my network that are directly affected by that.
Sure.
And maybe it's a West Coast thing, because again, I'm in California and it's nowhere on the news about the tragedies that are still happening. So my hope was it was on the East Coast. Obviously a California fire will dominate California. That makes logical sense. Mm-hmm. But dude, if it's not on the news on the East Coast, I don't know what we're doing. There are family and people, there's like little tent cities I'm seeing pictures of. And
of course,
it's wild what's going on. The
people
lack
are still
crazy.
People are still trying to survive. They're still trying to survive because the government has been a complete abject failure.
Yeah. So they probably feel like we forgot about it, which is horrible.
They did. The federal government forgot about states of people. They forgot about them, and shame on them. And so here's what I believe is going to happen. 400 executive orders overturned, all the idiocy that they've jammed down our throats. I think that Trump comes in and he starts handling chaos right away. I think that there is no excuse for how anything has been handled out there on the West Coast. I think it's an embarrassment. And I think that Trump can come in as an executive. He already has people looking at it, and they will have something done. There is a high likelihood that everything is still burning when he takes office.
Yeah, they're expecting Santa Ana winds to pick up today, I believe. So hopefully it'll be all contained and it'll only be burning in the forest or whatever you call that, the wooded areas.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a very good chance that by next Monday there's still fires. That's horrible to think about.
It's absurd. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that you could call yourself a governor or a mayor and not have any idea what's going on. And so I think that's the next thing that he does. I think the final thing that he does is after getting through a lot of this chaos, after getting through making sure that his citizenry, our citizenry, that they're all safe, that we have a plan moving forward. I think that he will do a better job than anybody in the history of mankind could have ever done, negotiating with the insurance companies to follow through on what their responsibility is. Flat out. I don't begrudge a business from pulling out of a market ever. Yeah. But if I was paying my deductible and you were still cashing my checks, I'm expecting that I get covered to the letter of the law, and that's it. And I think that he will make sure that that happens.
Yeah. Talking about insurance, I actually have a video coming out with Steadily later today as of this recording, and the shocking numbers of people underinsured.
Oh, it's like 70%.
Oh, dude. So we did some rough math. They're estimating that over 90% of the people in Southern California are underinsured.
90%.
Over 90%.
That's insane. But just 30 more seconds on this. It takes about 3,000 gallons of water to put out a fire in a house.
Okay.
There are 12,000 structures that are gone. The issue is that in the Pacific Palisades, they had a reservoir, which actually holds 113 million gallons of water. And it was empty.
For a long time, it was empty.
Because it had a crack in it. All they needed to do was call me. I could have jumped out. There was some cement bags and I filled it myself and sent them a nice big fat bill.
Yeah, again, we'll get off of this, but I think there's actually, it's funny. I'm starting to see this. That mayor. I think there's criminal accountability coming. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but let's get off that. I don't want to spiral here. But the fact is, too many people across the country are underinsured. We saw this in Colorado with the fires, Florida with the hurricanes. Folks, check your deck pages. Make sure if you have the tragedy that you're going to be fully covered. That's on you. That's not on the insurance company. That's on you. The holder.
Mike, language that they're looking for there. Because I'm not sure if it differs in California. Here, it's replacement cost.
Correct. Replacement cost. It's
still there? Okay.
Still there. Yeah. It's the same thing. You just, and again, folks, if you don't know, the replacement cost has gone up roughly 50% in the last decade, labor cost. And again, it's probably going to go up more. So that's not on the insurance company. If you're underinsured, in my opinion, that's on you. Agreed. I did an audit in 2023. And shockingly, this is embarrassing, but shockingly, 80% of my properties were underinsured. Now, most of them were within 10 or 15%, but there were a couple that were off by almost 50%. Because again, it happens naturally, right? You buy these policies decades ago, you get increases, and then suddenly we get a 9% bump in inflation, and if you don't catch it, shame on me. So, again, all right, let's get off this. Dion, Trump, first 90 days. What say you?
So there's a saying my family uses, and we're basically 98% orangutan, so I'm going to clean it up some.
98% orangutan.
The first 90 days of Trump, my family would call, there's going to be unicorn blood and koala pee everywhere. That's as clean as I can make the way we look at chaos and mayhem. Okay. I don't think people are ready for how bad it's going to get on purpose. And partly it is investors like a split government, right? The stability that comes from no large sweeping changes. But this is the first time I remember in probably 3 or 4 presidencies where we have a one side, all 3 entities. I've seen.
Yeah, Obama's first term, I believe his first 2 years were all blue. I believe. I could be wrong. But yeah.
So that's been a minute, right?
It has.
2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's a few.
Been a minute.
And so then we're recovering from a pandemic. We're 4 years, 5 years past that. There's been all these different changes. We have the 2 things I think that we're going to see that the news is going to attack is the January 6th pardons. I think that's going to cause the hate and discontent. I see those coming. And the second thing is preemptively, there are companies who want to not seem opposed to whoever's in power, which is funny for me. So all of the DEI removals of policies.
Hello, Mark Zuckerberg.
Right. Yeah. So big companies that we're aware of, but smaller ones too, right? Lowe's, 300,000 employees last time I checked, probably more than that now, but they're removing theirs too.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna see more of that. So it's gonna be like somebody just grabbed the apple cart, flipped it over, and just watched everything roll for these first 90 days on purpose. There's going to be changes that everyone can relate to: a crash, a recession. We warned you, see how bad it is. We're going to hear all of that stuff.
Yeah, I like all of that. And actually, both of you helped me crystallize kind of my thoughts. Because again, when I come at this thinking of 90 days, I don't know. My mind inadvertently kind of breaks it down line by line, right? Good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. But you're right. I think you're right. Unicorn blood and koala pee. I like that. I think you're right. And we're talking 90 days. I think the first 48 to 72 hours are going to be utter chaos. There's going to be so much stuff that happens. The news media is going to lose their mind over half of them and forget the other half. But when I think about the first 90 days, which again will go from January 20th to April 20th, Um, I think you're right. I think the chaos spikes in the first week, and then I think we start seeing a thread of a plan. Because again, I think unlike last time, President Trump is coming into this. I think he's been spending real work on creating a 90-day plan since he got elected. Right, all these meetings at Mar-a-Lago. I don't think that was just for show.
Nope.
And in fact, I never saw him gloat. Right, I'm sure he did a little bit, probably the night after, which you win, you're allowed to do that. But he has been spending, again, my perception, a lot of time meeting with people, and he asks questions, and I think he's got a plan, but I don't think you and I or the average person are going to see it for 90 days, at least 90 days.
Sure.
So then I step back and go, okay, what goes on in the U.S. economy? Because the U.S. economy doesn't stop. Right. It's going to be running smack dab into the most chaos in my adult life, for sure. I mean, higher than 9/11, higher than anything I could, the 87 crash, because it's going to seemingly be everything is going to be in chaos. The apple cart, to your point, will be tipped over. It'll probably be tipped over, lit on fire, and, kicked. I mean, it's going to get wild. But if you go out 90 days, I ask myself a couple of questions. The first thing I kind of ask is, what has happened? And I think one thing that we can count on in the first 90 days, I'd love to get you guys' opinion on this, is a clear understanding of tax cuts. I think he's going to have tax cuts. I don't think there's any questions. Maybe it's an extension of the tax cuts that are expiring now. But I think we're going to see very clearly where tax cuts are coming. We'll go to Dion first. Do you look at that? Do you even think about that?
So there was three things that are going to come in the first year. Like we covered the 90 days, then we go to the first year. And the first one on my three is taxes. Yeah. I don't know that we'll see more tax cuts. I think we'll see the stuff that was going to dip off in 2026 extended. So I think that and it'll go probably a couple of years past the 4-year term. Yep. And so that's the first thing is taxes. The second thing is we're going to see more deregulation, right? One of the first executive orders he did was, it was worded odd. So I'll get as close as I remember. For every new legislation that comes out, 2 have to be taken away. So sometimes it would be they'd be rolled together. Sometimes it'd be they just be getting rid of. And so the third thing is the tariffs, right? We'll see what the impacts of what his actual plans with tariffs are in that first year. So these three things, what they're going to do. So I still interact with a lot of owners of pretty large trucking companies, like 40, 70,000 employee. So they're not they're not Lowe's, Home Depot size, but they've got 17.
That's
plants.
Legit. Yeah, that's
right.
That's
so
legit.
This is where my job offers came from when I walked away from my job, and they said, you couldn't have quit. Something had to change. You need to come work for us. But they're planning, like 2 or 3 of them are planning a 20% growth by the end of, I think, third quarter 2025. So that's
it's funny you bring that up. A lot of the business owners I know, not quite that big. These would be more like 1,000 to 5,000. Almost all of them had said they ripped up their 2025 plan, and they're going for growth mode. So pretty crazy.
Yeah. Why did they rip up their 2025 plan? I know the answer, but I want to see what your answer is.
Well, they saw a change in direction of the country.
Absolutely, 1,000%. Everyone that is excited and not frightened to death about their future right now has the people that voted for Donald Trump to thank. That's a fact. Because the 2025 plans that I talked to a lot of executives, and that list, Zub, you got the same list. Yep. And they were all like, wave 1 of layoffs, wave 2 of layoffs, wave 3 of layoffs.
They were hoping to limp through the year.
Right. And now every single one of them has round 1 of layoff and round 1 of hiring.
Yeah, the plans changed. So sorry, Dion, cut you off.
No, that's okay. The 20% growth in transportation is huge because
that's massive.
You have to plan the infrastructure, which is the equipment, and then you have to plan the
the trucks, right? People.
Right. So there's so much to it there. The biggest change that I think we saw that came last minute was because as certain as some of us are now that we've had a landslide victory in one direction, no one had that thought before.
No
one predicted with consistency, we're going to have a landslide victory. So much so that all these companies right now that are removing their DEI thing, they had to wait till after the election.
Oh, of
They
course.
couldn't do it before because they weren't certain enough to make that call. I think people now see certainly for minimum 2 years, we're going to have this one-sided, here's how everything works.
Yeah.
And yes, there are people who will panic.
Of
There are
course.
people who will say, you have no idea how bad it's going to get. Like
And they're going to look right for the first 90 days.
correct. But then you have the people who
Yeah.
voted for this, who know the long-term plan, who understand that, yeah, what does a tariff do? It causes inflation. But why? Because it brings jobs back here. It makes things be made in this country, or it makes it more expensive in another country. So we're not going to have foreign countries pay tariffs. What we're going to have is United States companies that went to other countries to make things, bring their production back. That causes pain initially. That causes higher costs. But then what do you have? You have more Americans working working wage jobs. And so long-term plan, you'll have people that are happy and make plans for that. But short term, we're just going to see all the people freaking out.
Yeah. So one question I haven't asked actually any of my millionaires, let alone my two boys, was what are you guys' thoughts on Doge? Right? Doge was a cute little thing that got going on Twitter, right? Department of Government Efficiencies and all of that. But we're, I don't know, 4 or 5 days away from seeing if it's real. Does it have teeth? We'll go to you first, Matt. What do you think happens with Doge in the first year?
I bet there's a lot of useless people looking for jobs that don't have jobs anymore, that have some weird title where no one actually knew what they did. This is what we're going to find a lot of in the market. And so what happened with Twitter? 80%, and the company didn't fall apart. Everything didn't stop working. There hasn't been an uncontrollable amount of cyber stuff. None of that happened. You blowhards. None of it happened. So he cut that company 80%. 80% is how much he cut that company. Now, God willing, we cut ours 80% and find a way to make them troops and officers and things like that, but that's not going to happen. However, because you have to justify the $300 toilet seat because it doesn't actually cost $300, it costs $50, which it still should cost $25. But then you have a bunch of that funding going to some of these black sites and things like that, like stuff that we need for national security. I'm all about national security. I want to be safe. I want to know that we have the best ability to track a dirty bomb better than anybody else, no matter where that dirty bomb is going. And so I think that I think that there is, as far as low hanging fruit goes, that tree has more bent branches with apples within 3-year-old arm reach striking distance than anything has ever been seen in history. And so I'm very much looking forward to, I believe that Elon, left to his own devices, would overcut.
Yeah. And he did that at Twitter. He admits he cut 80% and he had to back off like 10.
Yeah. I think Vivek is going to be the sound and reason part of that, which is going to say, all right, maybe we need to pull a little bit back here. And then I think when it goes to Trump, he'll say, thank you, Elon. That was awesome. Vivek, thank you for saving this portion and this portion and this portion. Yeah. I agree. And let's just consider these other pieces. But you could see over the next 4 years, legitimately, a 20% reduction in force in the federal government.
Hey, Siri, how many employees does the federal government have?
Oh, it's millions.
I have no idea.
You just have to exclude the mailman.
Almost 3 million.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess the military's probably counted in that. I would guess.
No, they couldn't be. No, there's no way they're counting. No,
all right.
No, three. Okay. No, our army is way bigger than 3 million people.
All right, so let's assume it's not in there just for this, because I don't. If it was, I'd have to change these ratios.
No, I think federal employees. You're correct. I think that's people sitting in desks in office buildings.
So I think there's a couple of things, and we'll go to you next, Dion. So 20%, 600,000 people. You know the funny thing that I think Doge does? This is almost comically predictable, but we'll see. I have been reading articles over the last year that well over 80% of government buildings are unoccupied because everybody works from home. Now, I do believe that Biden had one of these executive orders that basically said you can keep working from home for 4 or 5 years. That'll be one of the things that goes bye-bye.
Yep.
I suspect government building occupancy, let's just say it's 20% today, goes to at least 80%.
I totally agree.
And oh, by the way, I expect us to sell a lot of real estate. So that's what I think is coming. Dion, what do you think? Doge, a thing, not a thing? What's going on?
So I've had a very different career trajectory than you two. And so I think I have kind of a unique opinion on the actual real threat of Doge, like the thing that concerns me the most. So I've been in the Marines, I've been a cop, and I've been working at the CDL school. I worked really closely with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Licensing, so heavily involved with state agencies and employment. And I can tell you from these 3 industries that I've worked in, and I'm going to clean this up again, crap rises to the top. That's the theme in your chain of command, right?
Yep.
If somebody can do the job, they're doing the job. The person who doesn't know how to do the job but is really good at playing the system takes a management role, moves up into the chain of command. So specifically in Washington State, the Department of Licensing had 3 of the worst people at their job ever that I've met in my entire life. Should never have had the job, but did it because they knew how to play the system. I'm not even going to name them by name this time. They were horrible people to work with. So much so that I came in as the Lean Six Sigma manager to revamp everything that they did in testing in the state. And all we did is undo everything those 3 people did. So here's what's going to happen with Doge. My fear, this isn't what's going to happen. This is my fear of what can happen. They come in and they go, okay, we're doing this massive cut. The people terrible at their job, the people that run the systems that matter in our government, like fire suppression, taking care of forestry stuff, like all the things that can actually impact you someday. The ones who are terrible at their job will understand the system and they won't be cut. But the people who have their head down doing their job every day, those actual state employees, and I know a few who go to work, do a good job, are shocked by my coworker threatens people, throw things, doesn't do their job, takes all this time off, can't get fired because there's like, you have to murder somebody at the job site a few times to lose your job working for the state. That consistency of, I'm once I'm past my 6-month probation, I could do anything because you can't lose this job. Those are the people who will get the promotions. But the people doing the job, that when you go to get your license renewed, and everybody knows how the Department of Licensing sucked, there's somebody there doing it right because we have licenses right now. So something was done. Those people won't be working there anymore. And so, Matt, when you opened it with, I think some really unqualified people will be cut. That would be awesome. And it'll be great if that's what Doge does. But that's not what's going to happen. They're going to come out and they're going to cut people. And the people who don't even know how their union works because they don't care, they just do their job, the ones we need are gone. And the ones that are sitting there watching every email that comes out, every newsletter that comes out, every statement on here's what we're looking for and how we're going to cut people, are going to dodge the bullets. And we're going to have the crap that rose to the top running everything. And it's just going to be, the government's going to get worse.
Yeah. You know what? I certainly see your concern. I would hope that the thing that's really striking to me about the cabinet that's going around him is that they're predominantly business executives. And, certainly not true always, but God, I hope these guys are smart enough to look at the Rolodex going.
So here's the difference, right? Yeah. The government doesn't have KPIs. Every employee of the government, unless they watch YouTube, has no clue what that acronym means. So you bring in somebody like Musk that's going to go, okay, let's judge you. The few people who don't know how to do their job are going to know how to look good.
True. Okay.
I think what they're going to bring is a criteria by which any person can be judged. That's what I think they're going to bring. I think they're going to bring that because I think the government doesn't have that. I think that's exactly what they're bringing is, hey, guess what? What would you say you do here? And they're going to try and dial that in, figure that out. And then they're going to say, okay, sounds good. So we're all about doers here. So here's what we're going to do for you, because it's not about whose butt you kissed. It's not about who you're related to. And it's not about the fact that you apply and actually provide air cover for your bosses all the time, because Dion, like I worked government sales as well. And it was like, dude, like you couldn't be any more of a ball lapper. Like just stop. It's gross to listen to. Yeah. And what's interesting is I think that that's what they're going to do. I think that's what the office's assignment is, because Musk is brilliant and Vivek is brilliant. But I think what they do very well is lead. And I think the way that they do that is by giving the criteria by which they lead, because Musk couldn't do what he did if he didn't empower people all around him to do what he wants to see done.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing and we'll get off this topic. I think, again, I like you, Matt. I sold to federal and state governments as well as enterprises, and I do think Dion's onto something, because the sales process, again, where I have direct experience inside the federal and state government, is very different than commercial sales.
Yeah, it's pathetic.
It's different. And I to Dion's point, I'm a little concerned that we have enterprise guys, which is what you would call it in software, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going into a new era, not having any experience, skills, vernacular, vocabulary. So I see more risk. Dion, I appreciate your opinion. I certainly think there's a non-zero chance that there's some poor cuts in hindsight. You're getting rid of the grunts instead of the generals, if you will. I'm just going to hope Dion that they're smarter than that. But one more question on this for you, Dion. Matt pegged it at 20%, 600,000 people. You think by the end of the year, the federal government's 2.4 million employees? What are you going to take, over or under?
So my hope, even with my concern, is that it was a 50% cut, because we're that overstaffed with the government. It's my hope, right? I just know it will probably be the wrong people cut it. But I think first year, it'll be under 20% that were cut.
Okay, but the plan is there to go further. How about 10%?
I think we hit 10%.
Okay. So folks, let me know in the comments. We're gonna do an over under on 600,000. Matt, I'm gonna give him the over. Dion's gonna take the under. Let me know. You with Matt or with Dion? This is year one stuff. We're talking, let's put a date, 12/31/25. So just under a year, about 50 weeks or so. So now let's talk about what this channel cares about. Probably most meaningful to this channel is interest rates, right? I don't know if you guys saw what CPI did today, but CPI core came in better than expected, and the 10-year interest rate collapsed 16 basis points in a freaking morning. Wild.
Yep.
So let's just call mortgage rates 7% when the dust settles today. They'll probably be like 7.1, 7.09, something like that. Let's just call it 7 between friends. At the end of the year, 12/31/25, are interest rates above or below 7%? Dion, we'll go to you first.
I think they're going to play vertical pong throughout the year.
Vertical pong.
But I think we end the year at 6%.
Wow, all the way at 6. Okay, you and what's his name had that forecast called at 5.8. Barry Habib. You and Barry Habib, 6%. All right, Matt, what say you?
Yeah, under 7. Definitely under 7. The question is, I think it's going to be under 7, because I think that in the first 90 days, no. In the first 180 days, no. In the first 200 days, no. It's not going to happen that fast. It's literally going to be, all right, I think we've got some things in place now. I think we've got some things in order. We're going to start to show some green shoots, and we're also going to start to show some rot. He's going to start to say, hey, this is deteriorating. It's deteriorating for this reason. And so we're going to make these adjustments, and this is what we're going to do. I'm very excited to see how he gets to the goal, because that there's 1,000 different ways to skin this cat. Oh, yeah. So the question is, how is he going to get to that goal? I still believe at the end of the year, I believe rates are higher. I think they've been higher for longer. I think they remain higher for longer. But I think that, towards the end of the year, I think we start to eclipse things for sure. I think that some of those things start to take effect where he can actually start to push rates down.
Yeah. From where I sit, the first 90 days of Trump, a lot of the stuff that comes out, again, the chaos, the apple cart, the unicorn blood, and what was it? Quality. Yeah, that is awesome. That's a great imagery. That was very well cleaned up. I'm 2 points for Dion today for that one. I don't know how rates could go down in the first 90 days because, again, chaos, uncertainty, fear, nonsense, generally speaking, is not good for rates, right? Uncertainty is bad for the market.
There's only one scenario I see where rates come down right away.
Okay.
And that's if the Fed really wants to make Trump look bad. They go, look at this inflation we're getting. Don't look at the rates coming down, causing that inflation. It's all these things Trump are doing. It's caused this inflation you're experiencing. Because that's what happens. You bring rates down, we're going to see inflation. Prices of everything goes up.
Yeah. Again, I think the Fed, and again, you guys might disagree with me. I think the Fed is far more independent than most people think. I think Jerome Powell doesn't give a rat's ass about either party. I think both party want his job. I don't think he cares. I think he's in this for another 16 months. I could be wrong, right? Maybe it's more. Go ahead.
Everything he's going to do is to justify the job that he's going to get after he's finished with the Fed.
You know what?
It's going to be. It's human nature.
Yeah. I think, I even think it's more than that. I think he's playing for his legacy. And
yeah, I mean, do you think legacy ties into where he ends up? Because he's still like, look at where all of these guys end up, right? Like, where did they all start? Pretty much Goldman.
Yeah. No, yeah. You know what? I would bet money he doesn't go back to banking. My guess is Jerome Powell has enough. He had enough money before he had the job. Let's be clear.
Mm-hmm.
I think he joins some speaking company or whatever it is, and he gives 10 speeches a year for $1 million each. That's what I think he does. He's not going to K Street. He's not going back to Wall Street. He's certainly not going to go get a full-time job. Why the hell would you go get a full-time job, right?
No. I
He'll
believe
go on some boards.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I think he ends up on some big board, but I think that's important because that's going to be a combination of his legacy and what he did in the last 16 months, right? Because you're either hiring this guy who kowtailed to Trump and did what Trump wanted him to, or somebody who fought directly and diametrically opposed to what Trump wanted to do, or looks independent. Which one of the three did he look? And then just like anything else, it's kind of like in the movie, what was that movie? Distinguished Gentleman or something like that, where basically they go, hey, if you want to support guns, I got this whole bunch of people over here who's willing to give you money. If you want to hate guns, I got this whole group of people over here that wants to give you money. You just got to pick one. Do you hate them? Do you love them? Whichever one you want, because I got money behind both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I hadn't planned to do this, but let's have this conversation. Yeah. I do believe Jerome Powell's natural is, I think it's April of 2026, I think. Somewhere, it might be June, but somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Trump fires him? Do you think he's in the job? Do you think he survives? Or do you think Trump replaces him anytime in the next, whenever his term's up? Here's the question. Does Jerome Powell finish his term or is he fired? Matt?
If he starts doing the things that Dion talked about, Trump fires him. Because I think that Trump will recognize the things that help him. I think he'll also recognize when he can go out there and saber rattle and just say, oh, they're not working with us. This is ridiculous. And it gives them a scapegoat if something doesn't work out, right? Like that's how most executives work. So I think that that's a big piece of it. I think the other piece that I think will be interesting too is, did you see Zub, because I know you watch it, did you see on CNBC Fink's interview? Larry Fink's interview?
Yes, Larry Fink's, yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that $11.6 trillion poser so hear me out. So he actually gets out there and they were the king of DEI.
Oh yeah.
For the last 3 years. And his exact statement this morning was, we aren't here investing our money. We're here investing your money. We want to do whatever you need done and whatever your goals are.
The winds have changed.
Oh my word.
Yeah, like, it's disgusting.
So that's
changed.
So that's where I believe that, yes, the winds of change have come. And now all these people that were uber DEI over the last 3 or 4 years, there's all of these companies that are ripping it out, like Dion talked about too, with like Lowe's. I mean, all these guys are ripping this crap out. But I think that tells us, I think that's a bellwether for what's going to happen in corporate America. But I think that that's what's going to be interesting with Jerome is, does he make the full term? If he starts doing the Dion stuff, no, he gets canned, and he gets canned quick. If he doesn't, and he just looks like a good adversarial opponent, I think he probably is there for the 16 months.
Okay. All right. Dion, what do you think?
I think they have closed door meetings we'll never know about. And he does his job. And he does what Trump wants, and it isn't what Trump publicly says he wants.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. So I think at the end of the day, Jerome Powell finishes his term. Back to kind of why do I think that? Well, again, kind of the whole talk earlier. There's so much going on in the first 90 days that Jerome Powell is like priority number 117 on the list. And if Jerome Powell survives the first 90 days, Hunter, it's like his term will be over in a heartbeat. It won't even matter. It won't even raise to the point of having to be done. So, that's what I think is coming. So, folks, at the end of the day, this is what we think is coming in Trump's first 90 days, first year. Let us know in the comments below what you see is coming. There's so much to talk about: interest rate, economy, tariffs, border security. Lots of stuff is going to be thrown up in the air. It's going to be, I don't think any of us are going to understand the plan in the first 90 days. It's just going to look like utter chaos. And who was that painter that it was just all, what's his name? It's just
Pollock.
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 It's going to look like a Jackson Pollock painting that was very popular in the 80s. But I think what will happen, my hope is at the end of the year, we all kind of see, a pretty good painting that we can all go, oh, look at that. It's a horse. Where in a Jackson Pollock painting, you could never see the horse. So crazy stuff. Matt, where can people find you?
Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube and Instagram. I've been out of the loop for a few weeks with being sick and kids being sick. And so I'm excited for the first time in a month to go out to my project house and just see if it's still there. I'm pretty sure it's still there. I hear it's still there. But I haven't been out there for like a month. And I think I've done about 30 minutes of text messages about it in that course of that month. So I'm excited to kind of see where we are. Haven't seen anything for a bit.
There you go. And Dion?
You can find me in Las Vegas on the 12th and 13th at midnight at the Denny's closest to the Center for the Blind, having a midnight Denny's meetup. Hoping to meet people face to face and talk about what you're expecting to happen in 2025.
There you go, folks. You know what we'll do for next time? We'll actually get the physical address of that Denny's, and I will put it on the screen. I didn't have that prepared today, so shame on me. Guys, you're amazing. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
Ciao.